Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nabil Mustafa. I'm from 11F1. So I will discuss about study case that examines a big sport brand. It's like Nike. I bet you all already know about Nike, but we are discussing with chill. I got a coffee on me and I got noodle to eat. So first off, the title of study case is Hitting the Wall, International Labor Practices and Nike from Harvard Business School. So first off, the Nike is king of cool based in Beaverton, Oregon. The Nike started its business by 1660 $100 in 1972, and the profit is about $9 billion in middle of 1998. So the Nike is controlled about 40% of the US athletic footwear, and Nike, I bet you know that Nike has about checklist logo. So the checklist logo is called swoosh, SWOOSH, swoosh. And then the Nike has a slogan. The slogan is saying just do it. I bet you know about just do it because there are a lot of advertisement that from Nike. It says just do it. The one that famous one is fat boy in the first scene that he acting like he wanted to suicide, but in the end he walked out. And then there's a Nike's logo, swoosh, and the text just do it. So it was the iconic advertisement of just do it by Nike. So Nike is also collaborated with iconic athletes like Michael Jordan. See, I wear the hoodies. The Michael Jordan is identical about number 23, and Tiger Woods. So, however, a central irony lay beneath the success. When Nike sold the high-priced fashion affluent Westerners, the products were manufactured by low-paid workers in developing nations. Okay, I will take a sip of my coffee first. So, in the late 1990s, the Nike brand was increasingly known as cool brand because a lot of Westerners that wearing Nike as footwear, and also the trends like the streetwear is wearing the Jordan shoes, Air Jordan, and then Nike was known as labor abuse. I don't expect that because Nike was big brand, you heard, but it is what it is. So the public perception shifted from athletics prowess to stories of 12 years old in Indonesian factories and dangerous condition in Vietnam. So for your information, Nike has a factory in Indonesia and in Vietnam, and Nike brand in 1962 has a crisis that Nike's crisis was a direct result of its virtual business model. It's like a strategy concocted by the chief executive officer Phil Knight. So the Nike started with no factories, so Nike owned no factories. All manufacturing was handled by independent contractors, allowing Nike to remain a virtual cooperation with almost no physical manufacturing assets. And then the money of Nike saved on manufacturing was poured into celebrity endorsement. So the most of Nike's bank is spent to the celebrity endorsement, but not to the labor. Yeah, like that. And then Nike sourced shoes from Japan, then moved to South Korea and Taiwan as Cosmos. When this nation became wealthier, Nike pressured its suppliers to move to even lower cost regions like China and our loved country Indonesia. But in 1990s, Indonesia had become the heart of Nike's network. Good coffee I got. Alright, back to the topic. Indonesia seemed like a perfect manufacturing hub. The wages in Indonesia were low, and the workforce was considered docile, and the authoritarian Suharto government was eager for investment. So Suharto was eager the investment of Nike and then in 1991 the daily minimum wage in Jakarta was barely $1. $1. Only $1 per day in Jakarta. It was crazy. Compared by the minimum wage in South Korea, it was $24 per day. The gap was totally different. It's crazy. It was crazy. I cannot expect that. It was crazy, overly crazy. It's awful. And then the cost differential was the engine of Nike's profitability. And then the most potent threat to Nike was labor activist. He's called Jeff Bollinger. We call it Jeff. Okay. Jeff understood that Nike's biggest strength is brand, and the Nike was also greatest vulnerability. And the Jeff launched a focused one country, one company. It was a strategy, choosing Nike as the prime target of moral outrage. Jeff documented how Nike contractors regularly flouted labor laws and paid below subsistence wages. So Jeff, his most famous attack appeared in Harper's Magazine in 1992, where he calculated that it would take an Indonesian worker about 44,000 years to earn what Michael Jordan received for a single endorsement contract. It's crazy, bro. 44,000 dollars years, 44,000 years, compared by Michael Jordan single endorsement, just one endorsement. It was awful, extremely awful. Indonesia's awful back then. This comparison struck a chord with American public, turning a labor issue into a moral crisis. Okay, I need to end this video. Thank you for watching. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.